It is very common for students to know probably one of the only method that they know that they can get visa or get green card through H-1B. Now there is a new approach as EB-5. David, can you tell us what's the pros and cons when you compare the method of getting green card through EB-5 or through H-1B visa for foreign students?
Okay, sure. H-1B, obviously, it's a very simple process. It's simply a very direct application which you submit to the US CIS. That is the biggest advantage.
Right.
But there are actually a lot of disadvantages to H-1B. One is the quota. There's such a little in numbers of H-1B visa per year. It's a lottery. So if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you have to wait another year. If you can maintain your status in the U.S. somehow. And then also H-1B, it's a very long-term process to getting a green card in the U.S. Meaning that I have had clients where they've maintained an H-1B for 7 years and then getting a green card. So it takes a long time.
Okay.
And there's no guarantee you will get a green card.
Right.
Also, you are pretty much tied to that employer.
Okay.
So you can't simply say, well, I don't like this job, I'm going to leave, because that will cause your application process to slow down a lot, and then it slows down your whole green card process.
Right.
Now, EB-5, it's a lot quicker in terms of getting to the green card. The application is a little bit more complicated because of the source of fund report that needs to be submitted with your EB-5 application.
Right.
But once that is done, then you simply just wait in line. And once you're, at this point, it's somewhere between, I would say, 13 to 18 month wait period. But once it's your turn, you then have a conditional green card. And 2 years later, you get a permanent green card. So from that perspective, it's a lot quicker. Obviously, it's an investment, so there is the risk that the investment you're making, might collapse or might not succeed in 2 years or 5 years of time.
Right.
But that risk also exists for H-1B,
right.
because you might lose your job.
Right.
So there are pros and cons to both.
So it's safe to say that for our students, EB-5 could be only 13, 15 month waiting period until they can get their temporary green card. Before going through H-1B, you're basically looking at a 6-7 years of journey.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so if one student has that kind of money, or their parents can give that kind of money, this is a lot shorter journey, and I'm sure that puts them on an advantage in the job market as well.
Oh yes, definitely. And that actually, I want to elaborate that a little bit, because as an employer, hiring someone under an H-1B, it's actually it takes a lot of paperwork, and it's complicated. Versus hiring someone with a green card, like through the EB-5, it's like hiring a U.S. citizen.
Great.
And those employers that don't want to go through this whole paperwork process would prefer hiring someone with a green card than an H-1B.
Does that have a conflict between F-1B visa while they're the student on F-1 visa? Is there a conflict when you have a F-1 visa and applying for EB-5? Since one is non-immigration and one is immigration visa. No,
there's no conflict. So having an F-1 visa, you are able to apply an EB-5 application through an EB-5 application to get a green card. That's fine. It's not going to impact your current F-1 visa status.
Okay. And once they get their I-526 approval, do they have to go to have the interview? I mean, while they still have valid F-1, of course, do they have to go back to China, to the American embassy, have their interview, or can they just have that process done while they're in America?
So you can adjust your status in the U.S. If you are already living and studying in the U.S., we can always make the request that you adjust your status in the U.S. so that you do not need to go back to Guangzhou in China for the interview.
If you are in the States already on F-1 visa and that you get your I-526 approved, do you still have to wait in line for quota jumpstart on the status changing?
So basically, this quota issue is very new to both the EB5 regional center, to the investors, as well as to USCIS. No one has seen this before. The answer, I think, at this point is that if you're already in the US under an F1 visa status, you would maintain your F1 visa status even if your I-526 is approved, and then you would then wait in the queue to get your conditional green card at this point. Because the quota itself is actually the queue between the approval of the I-526 and the conditional US green card. So you would maintain that, you would wait in the US to get that conditional green card.
But everybody actually waiting in line under the same system. There's no separate system for that line. Right. Okay.
And right now, we advise our clients that we would say at the minimum, the wait is 3 months. I suspect by next year, it'll probably be closer to 6 months to a year.
Okay.
It's just not clear right now because no figures have been issued by USCIS.
So the earlier that your application I-526 is submitted, the better. Actually, the earlier, more time effective for you.
Because you can then get in the queue earlier.
Right.
That's correct.
That makes sense.